Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of All Around Hockey, the YouTube channel for the All Around Hockey fan. So today we're continuing on with our series looking at all 32 NHL teams, previewing them for the upcoming 2026-2027 season. Last episode we did the Dallas Stars. This episode we're going to focus on my favorite team, the Detroit Red Wings. And this is a team that has a lot to still do this offseason. So this is probably going to be one of the more busier episodes we've had. Lot of movement still to make. Who's going to be the next GM? Where's Dylan Larkin going to play next season? Who's going to be the captain? Who's going to run things in Detroit as the president of hockey ops? We're going to go over all that stuff. Also, is there a couple free agent signings they could make? Who should be a target trade wise? What moves is the new GM going to have to make? So this is going to be a very interesting episode, I know, for a lot of people. Yeah, I'm really excited for this one. So let's kind of look at what the Detroit Red Wings look at currently. We're going to head over to depth charts, check out the current lineups. This is, again, of course, all according to Puckpedia, what we use here. And then obviously we use Hockey Reference to look over all the stats from last season. And we use PuckGM for Puckpedia to kind of make some other moves that might still be made. So we look currently at how the Red Wings are constructed. Emmett Finney, Dylan Larkin, and Lucas Raymond is still currently the first line. Is that going to be the first line come opening day? I highly doubt it. Alex DeBrincat seems he's going into last year of his contract. Definitely still seems like he wants to stay in Detroit, even with the loss of Patrick Kane. Andrew Kopp there is a second line center as of right now still, and pending unrestricted free agent at the end of this season. Victor Arvidsson there is the new man in town. They brought him in from Boston. He had a really good year there in Boston, and so I think that's probably your Patrick Kane replacement right there. Marco Kaspers on the third line left wing, along with JT Compher, the third line center. He's still got 2 years remaining on his contract. Mason Appleton's going into last year of his deal at 2.9 mil. Carter Mazer has a pretty good shot to make the team. He's been kind of going down in Grand Rapids and playing his way up, so I think there's a good chance he makes the team this year. Michael Rasmussen, they're still the fourth line center. And then Keegan Colasar, an interesting guy they brought in from Vegas, there rounds out that fourth line. We're going to go down here. Obviously, somebody they still need to get signed right now is Simon Evanson. He's still currently a restricted free agent. So that'll have to be probably one of the first things that the new general manager has to come and do. Moritz Seider, the most likely captain of the Detroit Red Wings next season, and in the face of the franchise there. He got some Norris Trophy love this year, and so definitely excited to see what more he can do. Ben Sherratt, they re-signed him to a $3.85 million contract for 3 more years. Justin Falk, they brought in from the St. Louis Blues. Albert Johansson there, and Jacob Bernard Docker there rounds out that third unit. They have Michael Branzig-Nygaard up right now. Good chance he makes it. He's one of the top Red Wing prospects. Axel Zanti-Pellikka is another one who's one of the top prospects and most likely will play this year. And Jacob Bryson, who they brought in this offseason, is probably going to most likely be the seventh defenseman and maybe some up and down time with Grand Rapids. John Gibson, of course, they brought him from Anaheim last season. He had a really good first half of the year and really helped the Red Wings become really productive in that first half, which led them to being one of the top teams come the All-Star break. Fortunately, was not able to hold on to that success. He's going into last year of his contract as well. And then Daniil Tarasov, who they brought in from Florida on a 1 year, $2 million contract, is a pretty solid backup who they're bringing in. Allows guys like their prospects coming up like Trey Augustine and Michael Postava to become a pretty solid tandem in Grand Rapids this year. Now we're going to go over here and check out what they did last season. Like we said, they had a huge start to the season last year. We're first in the Atlantic Division going, I think it was close to the All-Star break. And then everything kind of just went down south after that. They ended with a record of 41 wins, 31 regulation losses, and 10 overtime losses. 92 points on the season, finished sixth in the Atlantic Division. And you can see their goals for, goals against, 22nd in the league with goals for with 239 and 254 goals against for 19th in the league there. So a little bit under middle of the pack there, kind of where they've been the last how many years. But we kind of go down here, check out the stats from last season. Alex DeBrincat had the huge year, scoring 41 goals, 44 assists, and 85 points. You most likely want to keep him if you can. But, if there's chances that he may want out of Detroit, you're probably going to have the new GM's probably going to have to come in and make a deal real quickly. Lucas Raymond had a pretty breakout year there, 25 goals, 51 assists for 76 points. Pretty solid season there from one of your top wingers. Dylan Larkin there, public enemy number one to a lot of Red Wing fans right now, was 34 goals, 33 assists for 67 points last season. Moritz Seider with a 10 and 50 season, and it was 60 points there. Really solid year from him. Patrick Kane, a big production they're losing from him. He had 16 goals and 41 assists for 57 points. Andrew Kopp had a pretty decent year for them. 43 points, 9 goals, 34 assists. Pretty good year from him. James Van Riemsdyk, who is also still currently a free agent right now as of the recording of this video, has 31 points, 50 goals, and 16 assists. Emmett Finney had a good rookie campaign. Showed a little bit of potential there. I don't know if it's top 6 potential, but it's pretty decent potential. He even played a little bit of center and did pretty good there. But he had 30 points, 13 goals, and 17 assists. JT Compher there had 28 points, 11 goals, 17 assists, and then Simon Edvinsson rounds out the top 10 with 25 points, 9 goals, and 16 assists last season. Probably a little bit more production you're expecting out of him going into this year, especially since he's in line for a big payday. So that's something you're going to be looking for. The goaltending tandem they had last year was John Gibson and Cam Talbot. Gibson had 29 wins, 22 losses, .901 save percentage, and a .272 goals against average. A pretty solid season from him, truth be told. And then Cam Talbot, again, still currently a unrestricted free agent right now as they're recording in this video. He had 12 wins and 9 losses with an .883 save percentage and .319 goals against average. Maybe he can still find it somewhere as a third level goalie, but as of right now, he's still an unrestricted free agent. I think Daniil Tarasov is probably a better pickup there for them anyways. So we're going to kind of go over here, and this is going to be Puck GM who we're going to use here. And we're going to check out, I got my details, who I think is going to be the next general manager of the Detroit Red Wings. And the big new rumor right now is Scott White, the assistant general manager in Dallas. I think that's a big name. He's kind of somebody who's ready to take that next jump. I think I think the president of hockey operations, you could look at Nick Lidstrom. He's the vice president of hockey operations right now. I know there's rumors of Brendan Shanahan, but maybe they want to go with some new blood and ride it with Nick Lidstrom. It's another Red Wings legend. I don't know if that's necessarily the best move to make, but I think that's maybe the more promising move to make as the president of hockey operations. And then the next captain of the Detroit Red Wings will be Moritz Seider going into this upcoming season, even if Dylan Larkin is still on the team, in my opinion. I think that's the first thing you got to do as well. But I think Scott White's probably a strong candidate. I think other candidates could be Tyler Dellow from the Carolina Hurricanes. That's a pretty solid candidate. There's the other name there with Carolina too. And then Brett Peterson, the assistant general manager in Florida, could also be the next guy to take over. I do think they'll probably go externally. I don't think they'll go Sean Horcroft or Chris Draper. I think it's time for a new voice. I think Sean Horcroft's maybe the only internal candidate that has actually maybe got a chance, but I still don't know if that's necessarily the route that they're going to take. I think they're looking for new blood. And then if they don't bring in Scott White, I think if they do go with like a Tyler Dellow or a Brett Peterson from Florida, then maybe they end up going and asking Jim Nill, who's currently the general manager in Dallas, if he wants to take a pay bump and become the president of hockey operations. That's probably more what I would go for. Try to see and make him tell you no to become the president. Obviously, that's a team going for the cup, though, too, so he might still say no, but he has been with the Detroit Red Wings for a lot of years before then, and then Scott White probably takes that GM job in Dallas if that's what's to happen. But those are my candidates right now. We'll see what happens, but I know Scott White's the big name right now. And then we're kind of looking here at the team, and I think the first thing that the general manager has to do when they come in is probably sign a Simon Edvinsson. Now we can kind of look at what Moritz Seider's making. He's making 8.55. It's a really good contract for probably a top 5 defenseman in the league at this point. I don't know if Simon's in line to make that much more than he would. Personally, I would probably try to construct it where Moritz Seider is still my highest paid defender. So I'm thinking maybe around an $8 million contract on like probably a 6-year deal for Simon Edvinsson. I think it's a pretty decent deal for him. I don't think you want to bring him in higher than your best defenseman when he only had a 25-point season last year with the Detroit Red Wings. I don't know if Simon's earned that big of a pay bump to take Moritz Seider on in cap hit. So I think that's probably the big pay bump for Simon that he's going to get. But we'll have to see. And obviously the big elephant in the room now is what happens with Dylan Larkin. And this is obviously the main 4 teams that's been rumored is Florida, Minnesota, Vegas, and Dallas is now in on it. However, you kind of look at it, a lot of people still think Charlie Stramel, Daniil Yurov gets it done with Minnesota. I personally do not. I think if that was a trade that was going to happen, it would have happened by now. I don't think that the new general manager, whoever it may be, obviously, I think Steve Yzerman's still running things right now until they name the next general manager. But whoever that may be for the next GM, I don't think that they're going to come in and immediately accept Bill Guerin's offer of what they may throw on the table. If they brought in a third team that could entice them with some younger prospects, maybe you could get a trade there. But I just don't know if that happens. So some teams also been rumored to be in on him, or like the Philadelphia Flyers. Maybe if a Matvei Michkov's involved, maybe that could happen. But also, I don't know if Philadelphia is keen to trade a Matvei Michkov. They had like a Jack Nesbitt, who's a pretty decent prospect for them coming up the ranks. So I don't know if Dylan Larkin wanted to approve a trade to Philadelphia. It's just kind of a up in the air situation. But my team, I originally had it already, is in one of my earlier videos, but I think it has to be a Carolina Hurricanes trade. I personally think this is a team that has the assets to make a deal happen that would entice the Detroit Red Wings, and I think it starts off with Alexander Nikishin as probably the big name going in there. He's he's still restricted free agent. And there's talk that he wants north of $8 million. So that may be something that holds them off on making a deal too. But I think if you brought him in, you could really solidify a young top four for years to come. I'm of the belief that they probably go after either Bradley Nadeau or Felix Unger-Sorum. Bradley Nadeau, I think, is the main person they would target in this type of a deal. And then an Ivan Rabakin, and then a first rounder and maybe 2 first rounders in this deal. But it's not just for Dylan Larkin. I think in this deal that we're going to have today, it's a little bit different than my Carolina Hurricanes video. But Dylan Larkin would be in the deal. Great contract for him to come in at, and then you're probably looking at defenseman Justin Falk going back to Carolina as well. Clears up a little cap space for them to be able to sign Nikishin. Maybe for Carolina, we can lower it down to a second-round pick in next year's draft instead of 2 first-round picks. But I think that's a pretty healthy return on both sides, and a deal that could be made. It gets Nikishin that whole drama out, and then it allows them to bring in a true second-line center in Dylan Larkin. Obviously, they see, as you can see right now, that creates a ton of cap space for the team. So I think then the next order of business would probably be to sign an Alexander Nikishin. Again, you're probably trying to keep him under that Moritz Seider contract. So you're probably looking around 8.4 on a 7-year deal to bring him in. And then that solidifies your top 4 for years to come. And then Bradley Nadeau more than likely probably makes the team after having a huge year in the AHL last year. And then I think you're probably looking at Nikishin up here with Edvinsson and Sider, and then you probably put an Axel Sandin Pellica right there. And then maybe a Janick Bernard Docker goes down here and can substitute in and out with Albert Johansson, with Ben Sherratt there on the third unit. Because they signed Ben Sherratt to that new extension. I don't know if they get rid of Sherratt's contract that easily. So again, I think Bradley Nadeau makes the team. You can maybe sub him in there. But obviously, as you can see, they're very thin up the middle still. That leaves them very thin up the middle. Bradley Nadeau can play center, but he's more likely probably a winger. So the next move is probably to trade for a center. And there's a couple of interesting ones out there. I think a big one that I feel would be an excellent pickup for the Red Wings, and somebody who needs a serious change of scenery right now. We're going to go to Vancouver, and we're going to go pick up Elias Pettersson. Somebody I think needs an extreme change of scenery. Would he accept this trade? Maybe, maybe not. But I think he needs out of Vancouver really badly. And so a couple of people that I think would be interest Vancouver. You could take on the full contract and maybe get another pick in return. But I think a Nate Danielson was somebody that they were really interested in the Quinn Hughes talks. I think that probably gets it started. Maybe some Red Wing fans are probably like, there's no way I'm trading a former number 9 overall pick. You could say that for sure. William Wallinder is somebody who needs to be up this year or have to go through waivers. So I think he would have to be in the deal, or maybe even a Shea Buium. But I think you're also telling Vancouver to take on the Vancouver native, and that's Michael Rasmussen in this deal, and take the rest of his contract along with it. Like I said, in this case, you could have them meet maybe like between $1 and $2 million to make Elias Pettersson's contract a little bit more manageable. He's making 11.6 for the next 6 years. Definitely you could say that for them to do that, or maybe that they take it on and say, hey, give me a 3rd round pick in this upcoming draft, and I'll take on all of Elias Pettersson's contract, and you get out from under there. They want to get rid of $20 million. I think that gets rid of $20 million right there, and then you bring in Elias Pettersson to be your first line center. Now, personally, I think him and Lucas Raymond would be a pretty solid wing center tandem. But I don't know if Emmett Finney's the perfect person to put there. I would actually go to them and say Michael Brandsegg-Nygaard. I think is somebody who can be a solid scorer, a solid right-handed shot. I think if you put those three together, it could create some magic. Now, Brandsegg-Nygaard has a professional shot that will play in the National Hockey League. I know a lot of people are probably thinking Alex DeBrincat should be up there, and you definitely could go to DeBrincat, but then you're kind of thinning yourself out. So I think this allows you to kind of move things around a little bit and make it a little bit more manageable of a roster construction. So you're kind of looking at that. Now we're around $9 million in cap space. I think another move would probably have to make either, they didn't buy JT Compher's contract out, which was weird to me. I thought that was a pretty obvious move. Maybe the next GM does go out and buy JT Compher's contract. But I think a Mason Appleton is a potential trade movement. So I'm going to go and call up a team like maybe the Chicago Blackhawks, who could use maybe a decent veteran with Connor Bedard being injured to start the season. So you can give Mason Appleton, and you can do it for like future considerations, but I always try to get like a pick, so maybe like a 6th round pick in return. You're not probably getting a whole lot for a rental in Mason Appleton. So I think that's a deal that could be made. It allows you to clear up a little bit of cap space and drops Mason, and allows you to play the kids like Michael Brandsegg-Nygaard, and maybe a Carter Berg even gets a chance to make the team. Bradley Nadeau could make the team. I definitely think that third line could definitely use a Nadeau or a Bear there to be there. So now you kind of have Casper, you got Kopp, you got Emmett Finney who could play center. You maybe move him to the wing here. Now, another person they've been rumored to be in on that I think would be an excellent pickup and provide good scoring depth would maybe be an Eli Tolvanen. He had 12 goals, 24 assists for 36 points, 78 and 78 games played. Not a bad deal. I think maybe you could bring him in on a 3, maybe 4-year contract, and we'll probably say around like a $3.3 million contract. Not ginormous, and I think that could uh, maybe light a little bit of fire in there. In fact, we'll do that we'll revert that and actually do a 3-year contract at 3.3. I think that could still bring in an Eli Tolvanen. Had a pretty decent cap hit, and then that allows you to kind of, I think him and Victor Arvidsson could definitely make up what you lost in losing Patrick Kane. I definitely think that hurts. But if we go and look at what Victor Arvidsson did last season, we saw 51, I think it was around 50 plus points. He had that same production with Boston. So I definitely think you're not losing a whole lot. Now, this allows you to get a lot of righty shooters. Tolvanen, I think, fits perfectly in there, and you can maybe put like an Emmett Finney there on the third line center. He's somebody who played center in juniors, so you can maybe even develop him as a center and see that can't make you a little bit stronger. Marco is obviously a center that could still go there too. However, I think Marco could be a trade piece as well. Now, there's another center that could be available that you could upgrade and might end up being a pretty decent pickup. He's rumored to be on the trading block, and that is going to the Seattle Kraken and asking for Shane Wright. He's somebody who just needs a change of scenery. I think, you can take a buy low chance on him and see what he can do. I think also another player who needs a change of scenery could be maybe a Marco Kasper. So maybe you trade him and, you could attach like a Jessica Kiskinen in this type of a deal to kind of make it happen. Because maybe you have to trade a little bit more. Probably not a whole lot if you're trading Marco, because you're kind of trading a young center for a young center. And then you make that move, and I think now you're looking a little bit more stronger up the middle, for sure. I don't think they will trade Emmett Finney. I think Emmett Finney is somebody they want to project and maybe see if he can move over to center. And then this could maybe allow you to go with Kopp there on the third unit, and Comfort could sub in and out. I think that allows you to have a pretty decent press, pretty decent scratch roll. You could have a little bit of a, switch around with lineups. JT could play one day, and you could maybe sit a Kolesar. You could sit a Mazer. If Bradley Deneau doesn't make the roster, then maybe he doesn't make the roster, or maybe even Carter Bear makes the roster. I think he's got a really strong shot to make it. He was on a team that almost won the Memorial Cup last year, 77 points, 53 games played. He could definitely make some noise and make the team. So you could go Carter Bear. You could go Bradley Nadeau. Bradley Nadeau is a little bit more proven than the AHL, so I think they would probably go him over Carter Bear. And I'm not the most optimistic Red Wings fan, but I do think if you made these moves, you're looking a little bit stronger. You bring some more people in to kind of fit the Seider Raymond timeline. Pettersson has not been the most productive. Obviously, we know this. The last couple of years, he's been really struggling. He only had 51 points last year. But this is a guy who I think if he gets it going, he can get it going. He had a 102-point season just a few years ago at age 24. He had 89 points the season before. That's a little, you're not getting as much production out of Dylan Larkin, so maybe you take a little bit more of that. And you have the salary cap room to kind of absorb the rest of that contract and maybe get a little bit more in a type of a deal for Elias Pettersson. And I personally, to me, I think him and Lucas Raymond would fit like glue. Just absolutely I think a perfect tandem. And then if you put like a solid goal scorer winger right next to him with like a Brandon Nygaard, I think that could be a really solid first line. And then you come back with an Abrinkett, right, Arvidsson. There are a lot of right-handed shooters there. Maybe you put a Tolvanen in there and have Arvidsson on the third unit, with Nadeau on the wing to kind of give Finney a little bit more scoring there on those sides. So you definitely could run it with that if you wanted to go that. And then Kopp probably fits better on that fourth unit. He was a good scorer, and you really could adjust it any way you wanted to. I feel like you could have Finney there in the third line. Finney could also be a second line center. He could be the fourth line center. I think this allows Tom McClellan a lot more roster construction if Tom McClellan stays as the coach, which who knows. There's some pretty good coaching options out there too. We'll have to wait and see what happens there. Maybe the new GM would want to bring in a new younger coach. I think Jay Woodcroft would be a fantastic pickup. That's my opinion. He had a little bit of a rough. He didn't have a rough going in Edmonton. I think he was just new, and he's kind of learned under Joe Quenneville in Anaheim, where I think he could be an excellent chance to be a good coach. So you kind of look at this team. Alexander Nikishin would be an excellent pickup. This solidifies your top four for years to come. The salary cap's going up, so you could probably absorb these contracts. You're trying to probably keep them under more insider money if you can. Bradley Nadeau could be an excellent pickup. Shane Wright is a guy you could buy low on who could end up really blossoming into a really solid player in the future. Elias Pettersson, I think, is a risk you could take, and especially if you pair him with Raymond, I think that could definitely be a solid tandem. And this allows you to kind of move things around and be a little bit more of a well-constructed lineup. Currently, as it stands, I don't think this is what the Red Wings look at currently is going to be what the team's going to be. Obviously, come opening day, there's still a lot of moves to be made. There's a GM who needs to be hired. There's a captain who probably needs to be traded because that's going nowhere. And, I traded him to Carolina at the end of the day, but you kind of look at it and you think he would approve a trade to the Carolina Hurricanes. He's trying to go to the playoffs. I definitely don't see him turning a trade down to the defending Stanley Cup champions when you look at his original list of teams were. So I definitely think that's a trade that could happen, and I think they have the assets to make it happen. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Would love to hear from you guys. Do you think Dylan Larkin, where you guys think Dylan Larkin's going? Drop me what trade package you guys think Dylan Larkin's going to go for. Who do you think is going to be the next general manager of the Detroit Red Wings? Who do you think the next president of hockey operations is going to be? There's a lot of things up in the air with this team. But I definitely think, it's a team that hopefully needs a big makeover, and hopefully they do it the right way. We'll have to see. Let me know if you guys think this is the right way or not. It's probably a team, as of right now, the way that they're constructed, is probably ending last in the Atlantic Division. But like I said, there's still lots of moves to be made that could maybe improve it to maybe being a little bit better than that. I don't know if it's a playoff team at the end of the day if you went with this team, but I definitely think you bring in a lot of people that fits that Raymond Seider timeline. So let me know what you guys think. Drop comments down below. Love to hear from you guys. If you like this video, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to All Around Hockey, the YouTube channel for the All Around Hockey fan. And the next video we're going to do is on the Edmonton Oilers. So I'll talk to you guys then. Bye.